Welcome to today's session, which takes the form of a structured interview. We have Ian Thompson here to talk about early supplier involvement, or sometimes called ESI. So perhaps you could explain to everybody what is ESI and how does it differ to the more traditional approach to managing a supplier in procurement?
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question. We all know from our experiences in procurement that stakeholders get a little bit fed up with the speed at which some procurement operations can work at. Imagine you're working in a production team or you're working with customers and you want to get a solution out to them quickly, but somebody in procurement says, well, hang on, we've got to now do a competitive procedure and go to the market. The concept of ESI, early supplier involvement, is about pre-identifying the supplier you want to work with, bringing them into the production or the development process as an early stage so that they can work in developing the specification and getting things into production without that delay of having to go through the procurement process. So ESI is about enhancing your product by using a supplier and involving them early in the process without all those delays from a normal procurement process.
I know we'll have quite a lot of public sector buyers watching the YouTube videos. I'm pretty sure they might refer to this as early market engagement. Is this the same thing?
No, it's not at all. These are completely different concepts. Early market engagement in the public sector form is about consulting with a marketplace to help inform how a subsequent procurement procedure is going to be run and making no commitments to the market. ESI is typically undertaken in the private sector, often in a production environment where you want to engage with the supplier before production has started. So in effect, what you're doing with ESI is you're picking the supplier you're going to work with beforehand, whereas in the public sector, early market engagement is purely a consultation exercise to help inform the buyer how you're going to run a procurement process.
Just on that, can you utilise an ESI approach within the public sector, or you just can't because of the regulations?
Okay, so what we're starting to do here is explore public sector regulations. One of the challenges with ESIs is you are making this early commitment in the process to a supplier. The public sector regulations require us to go through a market process. And so the downside of ESI is that you're making this initial commitment before you've actually been to the market. And so that's going to create a conflict with public sector regulations. Now, there may be some occasional, infrequent times where that is a possibility to do. But in the mainstream, no, you need to go through a full procurement process in order to identify your supplier, not pick a supplier first and then go through your production process.
Okay, so we've already picked up there could be some issues with ESI on the public sector side. Are there any issues with ESI on the private sector side?
Sometimes there are. So while ESI has massive advantages in speeding up the time to market process, because you've picked your supplier and you've got your product out with the supplier's help, one of the downsides is the potential loss of commercial leverage. So what you've done is you've picked your supplier without necessarily going to competition. You've gone into your design, your development process, and then the moment you're going to market and you're expanding the volume, suddenly you find you're tied in with this supplier and there's a loss of commercial advantage. There's also the danger where you're building the specifications specifically around a supplier. And if you build your specification around a supplier's capabilities, you can find yourself locked in to dancing to their tune about your product, which again puts you in a weaker commercial position.
So if you are a buyer and you're asked to do ESI, how would you avoid these risks that you've just talked about?
Okay, so there are two principal ways, and it's really down to whether you can decouple the support you're getting from a supplier in the design and development phase from the production. Because if you can, then you'd run those as two separate engagements. Get a supplier to help you with the design and development, get a supplier to help you with production, and it may or may not be the same one. So you've decoupled the problem and you've taken away the problem. If you're unable to do that, perhaps you're in a fast-moving environment, then when you're engaging with your supplier for the design and development work, you have got to have a mind towards the eventual rollout of the mainstream production. And so you're looking at a development agreement that has both scenarios built into it to ensure that there's no loss of commercial advantage when we get to the wider volume.
Okay, so thank you very much for explaining ESI. I hope you found that useful, and if you have found it, please like and subscribe, and good luck with your examinations.